So ideally, this is a tool that you can use and implement into your relationship. And guess what? We have completed that questionnaire out, the emotional needs of men and women, and every 6 months you want to take it again because the nature of your relationship should change if you're putting in the work. You should experience a change. So those numbers are going to be quite different 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now than they are today. So hopefully it represents progression instead of regression. All right? So the biggest problem we have is retaining information and then shelving it. We do nothing with it. The Bible says to not just be a hearer of the word, but a doer. If you're not doing, it's not going to work. So at the end of the day, it'll work if you work it. All right? Mm-hmm. Now, I'm kind of disappointed. I've given all of you my phone number, and I only got one question. And I know good and well, many of you have issues, you have questions, you're looking for clarity, and you're tiptoeing and tap dancing around dealing with these real issues. If there were no other opportunity beyond this day to address your particular issue, now's the opportunity to do it. So as we're doing the second session and even up to the next break, I want you to send the questions in because the next session is directly related to answering your specific questions. All right, so we're going to be talking about sexual fulfillment. Now, this is a hot topic for many people because...
For more reasons than one.
Unfortunately.
Right.
So a lot of times when we get married, we're all excited. In fact, in the church, we have found that so many people who should not have been married got married because they were burning in lust or they wanted to legitimize what they were doing. So they wanted God, in essence, you've heard it before, bless my mess. So since we're outside of the will of God, we might as well go ahead and say I do, get married so that we have the legal right to now have sex. But unfortunately, for a lot of couples, that's all they have between them is just sex. Mm-hmm. And guess what? On top of that, it's not even that good. Mm-hmm. And so if that's your main motivator, and now you're locked in a relationship, imprisoned, if you will, that's how some of us think about it, now you're miserable in your marriage because the sex isn't even good. You don't talk, you don't communicate, you don't date, you have absolutely nothing.
Or you aren't having sex because you're not fulfilled in the bedroom. And for too many church folk, the conversation of sex is always taboo. There's nobody really to turn to talk about, the shoulds and the should nots and, is this okay or is that okay? And going back to what Hasani talked about before with your family marinade and what your belief system is, some things you just might find sinful. And beyond your family marinade, your life experiences, things that you may have encountered within your life, whether it was someone that affected you or damaged the way you process, or things that you decided to do might hinder you in the bedroom with your spouse today because you associated with something that's sinful.
And Danielle made a great point. A lot of times the topic of sex or sexual intimacy is considered, taboo and a topic that should not be discussed in the church. And here we are in the church talking to just married couples. Mm-hmm. So I want you to get comfortable right now. So I want you to repeat after me. Penis.
Penis. It's okay.
Vagina. Right. Very good. Very good. You exist today because of those two things. Mm-hmm. So I want you to get comfortable thinking about it, talking about it, and engaging in the conversation. So, listen, I say this all the time, that if single folk ever wanted to know how to live a truly abstinent life, all they have to do is take a look at some of these married couples. And if married couples ever wanted to know how to put passion back in their marriage, all they need to do is look at some of these singles. Uh-huh. And it seems as though we're operating in seasons that God did not ordain for us. Yes. And so if we realize that once we say I do, we have the freedom and the passion to enjoy each other the way God designed it, because it is a gift that has been given to Him, from Him to us within the confines of our marriage. But we allow so many negative thoughts and concepts and hang-ups to get in the way. So whether those hang-ups may be cultural hang-ups that we bring into the relationship of what is appropriate or inappropriate for a girl or a guy to do, whether it is religious tradition based upon the misinterpretation of the Word of God that says sex can only be like this. Matter of fact, St. Augustine was one of those individuals that was very, specific in terms of the positions that you should engage in. And in fact, this whole concept of the missionary position came from that line of thinking. So we think in the bedroom, all we can do is sex in this position. Anything outside of that is nasty and disgusting and can't be brought into our bedroom, which is ridiculous. We had a question that came to us. We were just in Antigua 2 weeks ago doing a marriage conference there. It was phenomenal. One of the questions was, my spouse thinks that it is nasty and immoral and sinful to dress up in the bedroom. So somehow wearing attire into the bedroom was a sin. And I said, well, all right, well, go to work naked. If putting clothes on is a sin, go to work naked. And let's see how that works out. So if you can adorn yourself for the world, for a job, to go to the supermarket, to pump gas, to just go outside of your home, why can't you adorn yourself in a sensual, sexual way for your partner? So whether that means silk boxers for a man or string bikinis, and whatever it is, whatever works for you.
Whatever works for you. That's the whole point. It's like sex belongs to married people. It belongs to us, but we don't own it, and we hinder ourselves emotionally, physically. In every way, we put up our own blocks and barriers around what we feel is acceptable and not acceptable. Now, we all have a moral standard here, so we're not talking about anything goes. You're not going to be swinging and having all other kinds of couples in your bedroom with you. But we need to be free to express ourselves in the bedroom. And I tell married women all the time that you need to be comfortable and be able to freely express to your spouse what you do and you do not like in the bedroom. And a lot of couples avoid each other sexually or are just silently suffering unsatisfied simply because they don't have a safe place to communicate with their spouse what's happening in the bedroom, whether they like it or they don't. So it's not you need to be in a string bikini and you need to be in silk boxers. It's you need to figure out what works for you in your bedroom, and you need to create an atmosphere where both of you are free to express yourself, free to explain what you like and don't like, and free to have fun in the bedroom.
So with that being said, I think that's a powerful point. There needs to be the power of joint agreement in the bedroom, because if not, one partner feels like they're in prison to someone else's expectations, and another person feels deprived. So beyond some simplistic conversation of what I like and what I don't, some of us have deeply embedded issues that stem back to possibly rape, molestation, certain things that we experienced in our past that has shaped our desires, if you will, in terms of what we're willing to do or not do in the bedroom. It's so amazing how so many couples been married for years, and certain partners don't even know the sexual history of their partner. So they cringe, they tighten up at the thought or the expression of something, and it stems back to being possibly molested at the age of 7, but they never told their partner. So once again, we have no problem becoming physically naked, but we have a major problem becoming emotionally naked and allowing our partners to see inside our world. See, when you marry somebody, you're marrying their past, their present, as well as their future. And if you deprive your partner of your past, then there's going to be an emotional disconnection that automatically exists in your relationship. And so when you've entered into true intimacy, it means that you're allowing your partner to accept all of who you are. So if there are hang-ups because of unresolved issues that you haven't addressed, this is where counseling comes in, right? So some of those things that you just don't like could be creating a sexual deficit in your marriage, but if you overcame the root of the issue, you may have a desire for that particular thing. So I'm saying that if you are unequally yoked in the bedroom, I would encourage you to do many things. Now, you're here in this session, that's awesome. Read a book, that's awesome. Go to other seminars, that's awesome. Seek professional help from those that can assist you. Because I'm telling you, we've helped so many couples through this particular issue, and now they have wonderful sexual relationships today. Mm-hmm. But what I want to do is talk to you about the typical sexual marital patterns that exist. The first pattern that we see is what we call a sexless marriage. Now, by definition, a sexless marriage is any couple who engages in sex either once per month or 10 times a year. Okay, I'll repeat that. Once a month or 10 times a year. That is defined as sexless. Now, in extreme cases, there are many couples who haven't had sex for quite some time. I recently did a private marriage intensive with a couple who have been experiencing relational issues in their marriage, and they had engaged in sex. Now, she's 34, he's 37, so physically there are no challenges, but there's a relational problem. Mm-hmm. They hadn't engaged in sex in 18 months. Mm-hmm. And the reason why they know it was 18 months is because that's when their child was born, 18 months ago. So a lot of our problems are not physical, biological, sexual, issues. A lot of them are the relational problems that impact our sex lives. Mm-hmm. And if we can begin to address those problems, then all of a sudden we begin to enjoy our sexual experience.
So absolutely true. When we were working through our issues, and one of the major things was criticalness for me. That was a major offense. Hasani was very critical. I was hypersensitive. That was a bad combination. But as a result of that, women, we have this ability to put walls up. So we'll put a wall up and we can still operate and function within the home and in the relationship, but have an emotional disconnect towards you where you can't really get to us emotionally or physically. There's just a block. We can cook for you. We can clean. We can iron. We can take care of the kids. We can, talk with you socially in public environments, but deep down inside, there is a wall. And so when the intimate part comes in, it's a struggle. And I recall really struggling with it, being a young wife, new wife, and thinking, okay, I got to do what I have to figure out how to do what God's called me to do. I'm a wife. I've got to submit myself. And I would go into the shower and I would pep talk myself like, God, please help me. I do not want to do this. I'm not attracted. I'm offended. I'm angry. I'm mad. I don't want anything to do with it. And not that any of these actual things were really coming up in my mind, but those were the things that caused me to feel disconnected and a major aversion. And as a result, it was a real struggle. And when you have a spouse that is demanding something from you, or you feel demanded, that you're being demanded to do something, that lack of intimacy there feels like rape. Mm. So when you submit to that because you feel that it's your calling or your duty or whatever, and you don't have a desire yourself, it literally feels like rape, which further builds that wall and that disconnect and that lack of intimacy. So we had to really work through that. I had to work on my oversensitiveness, and he had to work on how he talked to me and how he dealt with me, so that slowly but surely those walls started to come down brick by brick. I mean, maybe half a brick by half a brick by half a brick. But through the process that we help our couples go through, we were able to dismantle that wall so that we were actually able to have real intimacy again. And without that intimacy, I don't think we would be here today. We might still be married. We still might be operating in a situation, still operating as married people, raising our children together, maybe even having sex once in a while, but miserable, frustrated, angry, not fulfilled, unhappy, feeling like it's a duty and a chore. Nobody wants that, and you can alleviate all of that.
And so powerful. What she's talking about would be the second sexual marital pattern that many couples experience, and this is what we refer to as duty sex, right? Sex out of duty, sex out of obligation. Oh, I'm just fulfilling my conjugal rights as a husband or as a wife, and it's miserable. It's miserable for the wife because, as she just said, if she's forced to do something she doesn't want to do, I think it was T.D. Jakes who said that sexuality without intimacy feels like rape. That's what she just spoke to, right? But as unpleasing as it is for the wife, it's miserable for the husband as well, because men, let me tell you something, women, you need to understand this. Yes, sex is a great desire for us, but it's an emotional connection we experience too. I mean, men want to be wanted. We desire to be desired. We want to have our spouses initiate sex. But if we're the only ones initiating the sex, and 9 times out of 10 you turn us down, and every 1 time out of 10 when you agree to do it, you think you're doing us a favor because you're miserable. You're laying in the bed. You lift your leg up. You say, get what you got to get. When you're done, let me know so I can go over and turn to sleep. That is miserable. That's miserable for a man. I mean, real talk, a man, I've talked to so many men, they rather masturbate than participate in sex with a dead person. Because that's exactly what it feels like. And so just as it drains the wife emotionally, it drains the husband emotionally. And every touch, the touch that initially stimulated your partner, now becomes repulsive. So you, in essence, become repellent to your partner because you have these emotional issues and relational issues. And now you hate the person you used to love with every new touch.
That's right. And just to continue on that, we're not suggesting that you'll ever have the same sex drive or sexual need as your spouse. You may never, ever equally share the desire to have sex when you have sex. But it's still important, just like going back to what we said earlier in your relationship where you put so much effort into it. You made time in your schedule. You were just as busy then, but you made time in your schedule to fulfill whatever that need was at the time. It's the same thing with this sexual need. You need to make time, make the effort, initiate the situation so that you're both receiving what you need to receive out of the relationship. It's not that you're going to necessarily feel like it. Nobody's saying that you're ever going to feel like it, but when you get into the habit of something, it becomes easier, actually. And actually, you feel more natural. Think about when you first started riding a bike. It was awkward. You were wobbling all over the place. You kept falling down. You skinned your knee. You busted your head. But after a while, you found a balance, and it became natural. And now you may not have ridden a bike in 15 years, but I bet you if you get back on a bike, you know how to ride a bike. It feels natural. And so the more you begin to practice, participating in this and just really considering the sexual need of your spouse and making it a part of your routine, the more natural it'll feel. And I'm talking about initiating, if it's not your natural gift or your natural desire.
Initiate, women. Please, initiate. We need that. Now, the third sexual marital pattern that we experience is what we call old shoe sex. Old shoe sex. Now, women, I'm going to ask you a question. Please don't have me waiting for your response. Just spit it out there. How many of you, by show of hands, love a new pair of shoes? Let me see your hands if you love a new pair of shoes. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to put your stuff on Front Street for just a second. How many of you have more than 10 pair of shoes in your closet? Raise your hand. All right. How many have more than 20 pair of shoes in your closet? Raise your hand. How many days are there in a week? 7 days. How many of you have anywhere between, say, 30 and 50 pairs of shoes in your closet? Now, what if you were forced to have one pair of shoes that you wore for the rest of your life? You would lose your mind. So when I ask women, I'm like, what's the need for like closets and closets and closets full of shoes? Shoes under your bed, shoes in the attic, shoes in the basement. What is it about shoes? And I often hear women say, well, it depends upon the style and the color. And if I'm wearing this, I need to match it with that. And all of this technicality that goes into a darn pair of shoes. And so when you think about old shoe sex, for many of us, it's like for a woman wearing that same old pair of shoes. Old shoe implies same way every day, boring, monotonous. I can predict what's going to happen before it starts. It's going to be the same position, same room. It's got to be at the same time. If you have kids, somehow we have to wait till they enter into some coma-like sleep where they can't be, woken up, and we've got to be in the dark underneath the sheets. And it's just like miserable. So now you flicking through the TV, watching Showtime, HBO, whatever, and you come across this passionate love scene, and they're tearing their clothes off, and they're so passionate, and you looking at your situation, miserable and boring, and you get frustrated. It's old shoe sex. And so we have to learn how to break out of the pattern and do something different. Add something new. Be more creative. You know, one of the things that we have as an organization, Couples Academy, we do every year what is called 7 Days of Extraordinary Sex. And 7 Days of Extraordinary Sex is a challenge because, you know, maybe, you know, when you're newly married, it's no big deal having sex for 7 days straight. But now, after being married for a couple of years, it's just like 7 days, that's torture. But when you're engaging in sex for 7 days, there's a couple of components we add to this. Number one, we want to make sure you do something different every day. So day number one is what we will call, may I take your order sex. So imagine having a sex menu of all of the possibilities of what you can experience in your bedroom. And you allow your partner, your server to your partner, they can check off what they want to experience in the bedroom that night. Day two is wives take the lead. Now, this is an opportunity for wives to give their husbands what they know their husbands want. So if that means a lap dance, if that means putting on a nice outfit, if that means, you know, giving him a nice massage, whatever meets his fantasy, you know, that's what you do. Day number three, husbands take the lead. Now, this is not an opportunity for a husband to do what he wants, but to do what pleases the wife. Because the desires of a wife in the bedroom can be completely different than the desires of a husband in the bedroom. And when you're meeting each other's sexual needs, oh my God, you've reached the sweet spot. Day number four is what we call outside the bedroom sex. That's right, I said it. Get up outside your bedroom. Go into the kitchen. Go into the living room. Go outside on the patio where no one can see you.
Where no one can see you.
Where no one can see you. Have sex in the car. Just, I mean, whatever it takes. Go to a hotel. Switch it up. Because when you're doing the same thing the same way, it becomes monotonous. Someone once said that monogamy leads to monotony. And many of us are experiencing sexual monotony in our marriages. Day number five is what we call, it's like sex game night, right? Where you take a game where, you know, there's a bunch of sex games. Like in our book, we give... Or you can create one. Yeah, because we have like 20 different sex games that you could play with your partner. And this is all a part of your foreplay. You know, just doing something different, adding a little bit of spice. Then we have date night sex, day 6. Where you have a nice romantic date and you follow it up with sexual intimacy, right? And then day number 7 is what we call role play sex. That's when you put on an outfit and you act in character and you're fulfilling, you know, a fantasy with each other. You're doing something different. And by bringing all of the creativity into the bedroom, you're stirring up the passion between you and your partner.
And you know, and it's just fun. And sometimes fun-y, you know. I mean, I think sometimes we make it just so serious, you know, to see your spouse maybe with a boa on and, you know, a scarf around their head. It's just funny. And it's okay to laugh and just have a good time. That's really what the whole point of it is just trying to find different new ways to just be exciting in the bedroom and just have more fun. And I think the easiest way to do this is just to commit to losing a little bit of your inhibitions, you know?
Yes.
What happens a lot of times is, you know, if we've gained weight or we're just uncomfortable with certain things, stuff has to be a certain kind of way. I don't want to be seen in this angle, you know, all this and all that. What we need to accept is that our spouse is married to us and we share each other's body and all of it's all good. And trust and believe, anything you think they haven't seen, they've seen it. So there's no need in you trying to hide and cover up and all that. Why not just lose inhibitions and have fun and be comfortable in your skin with your spouse?
Women, love your body and let your husbands love it too. Mm-hmm. You bring a lot of your insecurities as men and women into the bedroom. Maybe because you're looking at what television glamorizes as what the ideal version of a woman is or of a man is. Some of you, unfortunately, have been so influenced by pornography that now you feel less lesser than because you're looking at these perfectly crafted bodies, and when you look at magazines and images, everything is perfect, not realizing that that's photoshopped anyway. That's not even a real event.
It's not real.
And so when you look at these perfect frames, and then you look at your, varicose veins, and you look at your nappy hair, or if you look, whatever the case may be, men, you look at your big gut, but the dude has an 8-pack, you know what I mean? You're doing all of these comparisons that make you feel insecure and intimidated within yourself, and you bring that into your bedroom, and you're no longer able to perform the way that you want. But guess what? You know what men and women love in the bedroom? Confidence. It's an attitude. It's a mentality. And when you bring that into the bedroom, no matter what your shape, your size, or all of those other things, it's a phenomenal sexual experience. Understand that sex, there are 4 purposes of sex. Number 1, procreation. We're clear on that. Number 2, communication. Number 3, recreation. Number 4, release. The reason why it's important to know all of these 4 areas is because you've got to understand your partner and tap into what the motive or the intent is for that particular experience. Maybe there are times when a man just wants to communicate his love for his woman. So he's more passionate. He's more paying attention to detail. He's entered into the next sexual marital pattern, which is gourmet sex. Think about gourmet. When was the last time that you went to a very nice restaurant, 5-star restaurant, and they brought out a 4 or 5 course meal? They had the appetizer, they had the salad, they had the main entree, then the dessert, and the servers paying attention to detail, making sure that your water is filled in the cup. Sir, are you okay? Bringing you your napkin.
Did you want some cheese on that?
All
How
of
about
that.
some pepper?
Exactly.
Right.
That's
not fast
service.
food. It's not, who knows? Has anybody ever heard of White Castle?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the fastest fast food you can get. They throw them burgers in a sack and run you out the door. Imagine your sex life being like that.
Fast food.
Fast food. Rushing through the process, pushing you through to the next so that they could get on to the next thing, go back to the telephone or go back to the computer. We want to create an atmosphere where you take your time and really pay attention to your spouse.
And then the other sexual marital pattern is what we call hot sex. That is that passionate, acrobatic, swinging from the chandeliers. Let's have fun. Let's enter into recreation, right, as one of the 4 types of sex type of experience. So you don't want to do the same thing the same way every time. You want to switch it up. There may be times when Danielle I'm just giving an example, she may be stressed at work, right, just tension. And so she needs sex for release, just to release the stress. And that's the purpose that it serves. So you have to know what your partner needs, at that particular time, so that you both enter into the bedroom with similar expectations, so you both get out of it what you need to get out of it.
And to piggyback on that, gentlemen and ladies, it may not be a sexual release that you need. It might be a massage on the shoulders right now that will release the stress so that later you'll be in the mood for sex. So again, it is so important to know your spouse. And are you going to talk about the survey that we give so that they can actually check off the boxes with the challenge, the 7 Days of Sex Challenge? Tell them a little bit about that.
They're going to get that. That's a part of their assignment during the break.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll definitely get into that. But listen, for all those couples that are experiencing challenges of, say, frequency, one of you desires to have it more than the other, and you're like on 2 opposite ends of the spectrum. I've known some women who want sex every day. The husband may want sex once a month, or vice versa. And so that's a big problem. That represents sexual incompatibility. So how can you enter into what we call marital negotiation regarding sex? Now, what do I mean by marital negotiation? See, let me just pause and digress for a second. We're taught compromise, sacrificial love. Now, of course, we want to bring sacrificial love into the marriage, and there are going to be times when we feel as if we are compromising for the benefit of our partner. Now, in a scenario, in a circumstance, that may work. But the challenge comes in when there is a power struggle in the relationship. So let me give you an example. Let's say that Danielle is the dominant personality in the relationship. I'm more laid back and passive. And whatever she wants, she gets. So I'm constantly compromising and accommodating my partner. In that scenario, she wins, I lose. I'm being sacrificial in my love. She wins, I lose. Now, let's say that takes place over the course of several months and several years. Mm-hmm. At some point, I'm going to go rogue. Because I'm going to be sick and tired of always sacrificing and compromising for your gain and my loss. So now I've just created a mutiny in our household, and she's just like, well, what's wrong with you? You didn't have no problem with it the last couple of years, and now all of a sudden you want to act brand new, and now you trying to get... No, I never liked it, but I was accommodating you. Because maybe I had a fear of loss. Maybe I had a fear of losing you, or if I stood up for myself and gained some type of self-expression, it would cause a problem in the relationship. And so sometimes we do things out of fear. So sacrificial and compromising type of love does not work long term. Ultimately, what we believe in is the power of marital negotiation. A negotiation is a win-win scenario. Think about two companies who merge, right? Or there's an acquisition, and they're negotiating back and forth and back and forth. They're in there for hours, sometimes days, before they come up with something that's mutually beneficial. So there's concessions given. Okay, what do you want? What do you want? And then after several hours or whatever, they come to a great win-win scenario that everyone loves. That's what you need to enter into in every area of your life, particularly when it comes to sex. So let me give you an example, and then I'll let you talk. There was a couple who struggled because she wanted sex more than he wanted sex, and it was a major problem. So we said, all right, well, let's figure out some way where you two can come together on one accord and move these things further. So it was about, okay, well, if you desire sex X amount of days, and you desire sex X amount of days, how about you meet in the middle, and let's start with twice a week. One day be sexual intercourse day. One day be sensual expression day that doesn't have to lead to penetration, but can if it gets to that point. And creating a habit of doing it on a weekly basis so that both of you are on now the same page and things can get better over the course of time. Right? That was the type of system that work for them. And we found that when most couples begin to negotiate through things, and there's a process that we take couples through as they negotiate through their issues, and they're able to resolve conflicts that they couldn't overcome for several years.
I mean, just to add to that, I mean, negotiation can get very granular because you can negotiate days of the week, you know, based on schedules, and you can also negotiate the actual active sex, what you're doing. Because a lot of couples struggle with, like Hasani said, the old shoe sex, and you know, certain things are just off the table, and one spouse may want to mix it up, and the other spouse may just not know what does that mean, and you know, what are you trying to have me do, and you nasty, and all that. And so you come to the table and you negotiate. Okay, this is how I feel about this, and this is what I would like, and you know, you just negotiate all those things and just be willing to try new things. Because as he stated, the compromise, and when somebody's constantly bending or constantly not getting your way, it's like they feel like a sacrificial lamb. And a sacrificial lamb is slaughtered. You know, there's no coming back from that. You're slaughtered. And so we don't want one person to feel defeated and out. So we come together, we put everything out on the table, we write a list or the checklist, which you'll talk about, and you put it all out on the table and you negotiate what we're going to do. And guess what? It's all a test, right? So you negotiate something one week, you try it out, that didn't work, you negotiate something else again. So we don't have to feel like everything is rigid and etched in stone. Yeah. I used to feel like that. Oh God, if I commit to this, now I got to do this the rest of my life. No. Let's just take it in small little chunks. We're going to negotiate this today, and we're going to see how this plays out, and we can renegotiate again.
Now, another issue that a lot of couples deal with is, what about when you do have physical challenges? And maybe, you know, the woman is experiencing certain things that make sex painful, or the men are experiencing challenges where they're not able to perform and don't have the stamina, whatever the case may be. I don't know what it is about our community just in general. We hate going to the doctor. We hate getting checkups. We hate getting treatment. But that may be the source of the solution to resolving these problems. So if it means going to your urologist, what is it, a gynecologist? I guess? Yeah, gynecologist, whatever that may be. Do what you need to do And what we've realized is that when you have great physical health, it manifests in the area of the bedroom. So your sexual health is connected to your overall personal health, right?
Emotional.
Right, and your emotional health. So take care of yourself. Begin to eat the right foods. Take the right medicines. Get treated. You know, a lot of times couples are not having sex for months and sometimes years because, a lot of men are experiencing erectile dysfunction, or their levels of testosterone aren't as great as, it used to be, and they can't perform. And so as a result, rather than overcoming that challenge, a lot of times we retreat. Men have a tendency to retreat and to run into their cave. Think about Adam. God was searching for Adam, and Adam ran to his cave in essence. And a lot of times we do that when we're experiencing challenges that we don't know how to overcome. And sometimes as men, our ego gets in the way, our pride gets in the way, because as men, we're expected to know it all and expected to do it all and perform at high levels. But sometimes, we just don't know. And if it means going outside of your own thinking and seeking assistance and help from someone else that can help you in your situation, do that. And I'm telling you, if you get the medication and if you go through the proper process that it takes to stimulate those areas again, it's going to be pleasing for you, pleasing for your partner, and beneficial for your marriage at all. So this is why we say get help. Now, as powerful as your pastor and your first lady is, they don't know everything. They don't. They have been called by God to develop you spiritually. But there's certain areas of expertise that are beyond their scope, like it's beyond our scope. We can't answer everything. So you have to go to a source of expertise to get what you need and stop holding people up to a standard that's not realistic and practical. So many people I know, when they've gotten into trouble, they have one session with their pastor or 2 sessions over the course of 20 years, and they wonder why their marriage isn't working, because you're not putting in the work. You're not doing your due diligence to do what it takes to make this thing work. And so that is what we're encouraging you to do. Another issue that we got to deal with is pornography. Interestingly enough, many people engage in porn and pursue porn more than they pursue their partner. In fact, statistics have proven that pornography makes men lousy lovers. Mm-hmm. Why? Because pornography is nothing more than a woman pleasing a man, right? That's all it is primarily. And so in these scenarios, we see that women become hot in 2.3 seconds flat. And it's all about her pleasing him. But that's not real. No. Because women are like crock pots. Mm-hmm. Men are like microwaves. And it takes just a couple seconds. But women, you got to warm them up, and it takes over the course of time. And if you're using pornography as your form of reference of what you do in the bedroom, then she's going to be disappointed. You're going to be frustrated. And it creates all types of unrealistic expectations of what your partner's supposed to do in the bedroom. And it's just miserable. So what we encourage you to do is explore together, be creative together, and discover new things with your partner outside of all of these external influences.
Yeah, there's more. Pornography is obviously a no-no, very damaging to any relationship. But truth be told, you don't really have to go get pornography to be exposed to porn. You really can just turn on the TV, and there's influence all around. And so we've got to just, guard our gates, essentially. Guard our eye gates, guard our ear gates, pray for our husbands and keep them covered, because there's all kinds of influence coming in where, certain expectations are set. When we were in Antigua, we talked to some couples that had some issues because, these women come from a different culture where education was really pushed and there wasn't a lot of intimacy in the home. So when they turn on a regular television show and they see man and wife kissing all over each other and full of passion, they're looking at their wives and they're saying, there's something wrong with you. You need to be like this. And although there's room for that, we don't need to let the media determine what we're supposed to do within the confines of our relationship. And that's where you get into a lot of trouble with what is considered normal in the bedroom, what you're allowed to bring into your bedroom, tools and toys and things like that. God didn't equip you with none of that stuff. And to truth be told, there are certain circumstances where some of those things could be necessary. But there are other circumstances where they could be detrimental to your relationship, using toys, things with batteries and engines that your husband could never compete with.
Ever.
So.
But to her point, it's case by case, right? So you have to understand that when you're dealing with marriage and relationships, you have to deal with it in broad strokes and in a general sense. And there are situations and circumstances where things may need to be done to create stimulation and satisfaction for one couple and not needed for another.
Exactly.
If it's not needed, if it's not broke, then don't try to fix it.
Right.
I tell this story every now and then. When we first got together, and matter of fact, during, what is it, when we got married,
October.
It was, no. The bachelor party. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm. The bachelor party.
So many years away. My boys bought these pills that were supposed to keep you strong and enduring for like 5 hours straight. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, hey, you gave it to me as a gift.
And just before that, we were not intimate before we got married. So he wanted to just make sure it was just right, So.
Right. So we never engaged in sex with each other before we got married. And I said, all right, well, if this is going to make it even better, then boom, I'm on it. So I popped those pills, not thinking nothing about it. And it fulfilled its purpose. I mean, it was strong. Do you ever see that movie, Meet the Parents, Part 2? When he took the pill, he took the wrong pill, and he was hard for erect for 6 hours and couldn't get it down and had to go to the hospital because there was a problem. Well, that's exactly what I experienced to a degree. And then what happens is it reversed itself for a long period of time. So what I naturally could do, I no longer could do. So now I had to Newlyweds. So here we are, supposed to be all passionate, engaged in sex every single day, this and the other. Now I'm struggling to perform the way I normally would in a normal situation. I had to go to a urologist. I had to get on medication. And she had to be patient, and was. That was what was so pleasing and satisfying, that she was patient in this process. Eventually, things got back on its track, back on course, and we were able to move forward. And so the reason why we're transparent with you, sharing what we've gone through, is to help you feel more comfortable about your personal situation. Listen, you are not alone. You are not on an island. And sometimes we think our situations are the worst ever until other couples start opening up and sharing what it is that they do. I say this all the time. Yes, this is my profession, but this is also our passion. And you should be able to feel it, in our conversations and the things that we're saying and us being transparent with you, to let you know that regardless of what you're going through, there's a solution, there's an answer, but it requires that you do something. Remember we said in the beginning, faith without works is dead. Mm-hmm. You can pray all you want, but you got to get up off of your behind and do something.
I got a text the other day from a lady who said, I read your article and it was really touching. She said, but what do you do when your spouse won't change because I won't change? Change.
And so listen, I know as men and women of faith, we walk by faith and not by sight. But the Bible says that wisdom is the principal thing. And in all thy getting, get an understanding. And when you begin to operate in wisdom based upon knowledge, then you're going to be able to see transformation in your marriage. So listen, we've reached the end of this session. I see a question. I believe that's a question that just came through. We're going to take our break. There is a couple assignment. What we've provided for you is the 50 questions of extraordinary sex, right? So you've been married for a year, 10 years, 20 years, however many years. You think you know your partner sexually. You may not. You may discover new things because we change.
We change.
So
and our desires change.
Our desires change. So we want you to get back in your corners and fill out the answers to those questions, right? And get through as many of them as you can. And then we'll pick up in our third session. This is an awesome tool that we've used that transformed our sexual lives, and it will transform yours as well. I want you now to take the break. Text your questions. We have a whole 45 minutes of questions, but I only have 2. So I want you to take the opportunity to do that. 678-200-8996. 678-200-8996. It is now 3:33. We'll pick up at 4:15 and go to 5. Well, I'm giving East Coast time, but you know how it is over there. So we'll see you in just a bit. All right? Did you get something out of this session?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. See you soon.